From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the Business, Equity, and Opportunities Podcast with Scott Sander.
Welcome to the Business, Equity, and Opportunities Podcast. I'm Scott Sander. On this episode, a brand new Brigadier General shares how the Army handles its finances. As we begin Women's History Month, we turn our focus to women's health with a visit to Eskenazi Hospital. And we'll share a truly powerful success story.
Every business is unique and has a target audience. If you own or manage a business, Circulus Digital Media can help you connect and grow your customer base with turnkey digital solutions that are nimble, offering best-in-class results, service, and support to reach a bigger customer base, allowing you to pinpoint a specific audience down to the smallest details. Get outside the city, the state, span the globe. Put Circulus Digital Media to work for you. Get started now at circulusdigital.com. That's circulusdigital.com.
Why get all your holiday decorations delivered through Instacart? Because maybe you only bought 2 wreaths but have 12 windows. Or maybe your toddler got very eager with the advent calendar. Or maybe the inflatable snowman didn't make it through the snowstorm. Or maybe the twinkle lights aren't twinkling. Whatever the reason, this season, Instacart's here for hosts and their whole holiday haul. Get decorations from the Home Depot, CVS, and more through Instacart and enjoy free delivery on your first 3 orders. Service fees and terms apply.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities, and our time to talk accounting and bookkeeping. As the home of the Army Finance Center, located at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indianapolis has earned a reputation as the city that pays the Army. We talked to the top officer and got some wisdom you may be able to use too.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities, Accounting and Bookkeeping.
Newly promoted Brigadier General Paige Jennings is the commanding officer for the Army's Financial Management Command, headquartered in Indianapolis.
The Army and everybody that we do, and you can take all Department of Defense, all services. Once we get all of our money from Congress, our command here, which is really unique because we are really the only service that has a command like U.S. Army Financial Management Command. And we are really that bridge that helps the Army take in their money, expend it, pay people, pay vendors, and really keeps the Army running. And you have, a lot of it's done in the Pentagon, but then you have a lot of other agencies, and we really bridge the Pentagon and the agencies and the operations that are right down on the battlefield from the units that are doing it. Every year, all the services through the Office of Secretary of Defense, they submit up the budgets, and each service submits their own budget up. It goes up. In fact, it's getting ready to happen here in the next couple weeks. So the Army will submit its President's Budget Request portion. All goes up. And then over the next several months, they will go through the process, and Congress does their process as they look through the authorizations and the appropriations. Once we finally do get the National Defense Authorization Act, once that's finally passed, and then you get the Appropriations Act passed, then it comes down through the Office of Management and Budget, comes down to the, actually it's called the Office Secretary of Defense Comptroller, and then they will divvy it up to all of the different services, and from there, within the Pentagon, the Army Budget Office has to deliver it to all the different organizations, and it just goes downstream from there. A lot of the processes are very similar, right? When you start to talk about accountability, stewardship, using things in the right and the legal way, I think the biggest difference for the services versus a commercial entity is a lot of the money we get or the appropriations we get are for very specific purposes as authorized and appropriated by Congress. And I would say they have a life on them. So some of them can only be used for 1 year, right? Some of them can be used to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years, which is different than the commercial entity, right? Because they're about making the money and then using it continually. That is what makes it a little more complex for us, because not only do you have to make sure you're using it legally and appropriately, but you have to use it within that appropriate time frame. There's multiple ways that you can come in to become into the Army, right? You can enlist. or you can go and become an officer. And if you choose to become an officer, you really have probably 3 or 4 distinct paths. You're going to go to a service academy, and this could be at any of their services. So for the Army, it's West Point. You could go through the Reserve Officer Training Corps, where you go to a university and you go through 2, 3, 4 years. And at the end of that, you come out and you're commissioned a second lieutenant, just like when you come out of the academy. Or if you enlist in the Army, you can go through what they call Officer Candidate School, and you apply, you go through a process, and then you go through and you have to have your bachelor's degree. And when you come out on the other end, you will be a second lieutenant. There's also a couple times where you can go what they call green to gold, where an enlisted service member has not finished their bachelor's degree, but they will go to a university and they will finish it there, and it's kind of similar to the ROTC. It's one of those opportunities. And so for me, I explored all options, but ultimately I went through the Reserve Officer Training Corps and came through that program and then was commissioned a second lieutenant. Finance and Comptroller Corps, which is the branch I belong to, we're the smallest branch in the Army. And so when you look at it, there's myself and one other, a good friend of mine, who are right now in the process, have just gotten promoted to Brigadier General. Within the history of our Corps, we are the number 3 and number 4 generals for finance for females. So that's pretty significant. But then when you look, we have about 230 generals overall within the Army, and a very small, probably at any one time, usually less than 25 are females. So it's pretty significant for that aspect. So right now, like I said, we have 2 of them.
Time for our industry focus. As we begin Women's History Month, we turn our focus to women's health with a visit to Eskenazi Hospital.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Industry Focus.
Dr. Elizabeth Ferries-Rowe is the chief of Eskenazi Health Obstetrics and Gynecological Services and a leading figure in women's health care in Indianapolis.
I think some of the challenges are to be honest, the fracturing into a notion of women's health, right? Like, women are everywhere. and patients on the gender spectrum are everywhere and in need of gynecologic services. And I think one thing that I hope to do in this role, that I try to do in this role, is to empower non-OBGYNs to feel comfortable taking care of women and patients who need gynecologic care, rather than feeling as though it's not a place that they're welcome. And so I think recognizing that, 50% of your patients, give or take, regardless of specialty, unless, you take care of prostates, are going to be women. And so making it so that the care of women is considered an integral part of all of medical care, I think, is an important part of that. I think there are challenges with reimbursement, which make it difficult. And that's one of the things that, on the ACOG side, we try and advocate for. I think recognizing the role of prenatal care and adequate care for all pregnant patients is an entry for those patients into medical care, but also for their children and their families. And so prioritizing the care of women, practically speaking, is a way to prioritize the care of all people in a family, right? Like, as someone who has to struggle to get my husband to a doctor, like, women are often in families the ones who help to engage with the medical system. So I think that's one of the challenges, is figuring out how to make that a comfortable environment for all patients. There are still challenges in terms, as in every field, in terms of disproportionate pay. I think it continues to be a struggle for women in leadership, even more so for women of color. And so being cognizant of those challenges and trying to utilize any relationships that I may have to help address those and kind of help create opportunities for others, I think, is important. There are absolutely more women physicians than ever, right? I think medical schools often have more than 50% of their students are women. But in leadership roles, it's still very disproportionately men. And so that's the challenge that's facing women in medicine right now is to figure out how we advocate for ourselves, how we partner with others to create more equity in the leadership that reflects the makeup of the physicians providing care. I think figure out what it is that you love about medicine and create a job path that optimizes that, right? If what you love is delivering babies, then find a job where you deliver babies. And that can be hard because, especially when you start out, there's a sense of like, I have to take what's offered to me because this is the opportunity that's here. And there's a fear that if you say no, people won't ask again. And so figuring out how to balance taking the opportunities that come with the rest of your life is very important. I struggle a little bit with the concept of work-life balance. It's a big buzzword, right? But what does that mean? Your work and your life are the same thing. It's not like you drop work and come home and do the rest of your life and like have to sort of balance the scales at the end of the day. It's really more about how you integrate all aspects of your life, which is your family life and your work life and your exercise and your hobbies and whatever it is that, you know, that helps keep you balanced. And so for me, I think it is about always, if I were to talk to an incoming female physician, I would say find what it is that you love about the job and prioritize that. And does that mean that sometimes you'll do things that you don't love? Yeah, it does, right? Like, there are lots of times that you have to put in work that you don't love to do the part that you do love. And it's okay to do that as well. But kind of always keep that one nugget in mind that this is why I do this for a living, and make sure that that kind of is prioritized. And that's your kids too, right? And that's your husband too, and that's your parents, and that's your dogs who need to walk. And it's, you know, it's about how to figure out all of those things in the day. But if you can get to the end of the day and be like, you know what, here's a good example. Today I delivered a couple babies, did a lovely interview. I'm going to go help my husband coach high school speech because I did high school speech, and there's a female student who asked for some help with that. And then I'm going to come home and, you know, make dinner and watch TV and go to bed. And if you can have a day where you get to deliver babies and coach speech and spend time with your kids, like, that's a good day. And so I think it's about trying to figure out how to integrate that in every day.
We wrap things up with our success story. Since 1967, Powers & Sons has been a leader in corporate construction and occasionally demolition. The company led the implosion of Market Square Arena.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Success Story.
Mammon Powers III grew up in the construction industry and spent many summers in high school and college working in the family business. He serves as president now, the Indianapolis operation, and executive VP of Powers & Sons.
So from the very beginning, it all started from my grandfather, who founded our business in 1967. And back then there were no MBE or XBE programs. The reason we started our business is to build homes for the African American community. And so as we built homes for the African American community, those neighborhoods needed gas stations and libraries, and so we continued to build in that community, which then helped us to grow into a commercial contractor that we are today. We were fortunate to be a part of some early government programs that allowed us to get outside of our community, and we were able to do work in all parts of Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, which then allowed us to start to open up offices in different locations. And so that's how we have our 3 offices today: Indianapolis, Northwest Indiana, and Chicago. Our community is what gave us the support to start us and to help us be successful. And so it's always been in our DNA to support the communities in which we serve. So we are very passionate about being part of different philanthropic efforts as well as volunteer. And so in the communities in which we're in, we do a lot for food insecurities. We in the education space, we give a lot of scholarships for at-need base as well as construction-related And so it's very important for us to give back to the community. Early on, my grandfather was encouraged by my grandmother to start the business we have, and it was called Powers and Sons Construction, but it was probably her vision for the future because the oldest son was only 18, so they weren't fully in the business. So I think it was her vision for it to be her sons to get involved at one point. And she was very instrumental in starting our business. However, back then with the times that we're in, she wasn't fully written into the corporate documents, but you can tell that she definitely influenced and had her part in putting them all together and making the company, creating the company. Yeah, I think whether it's from a women perspective or a minority perspective, we're really passionate about making sure that we're giving folks opportunities to be in the construction industry, regardless of race or gender. And so, yes, that is a passion of ours to give opportunities to both women, men, and all races. Yeah, it's pretty awesome being a third generation family business and carrying on that legacy, especially with the Hallmark project we're able to be a part of right now, being the Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be on a presidential library. So it has been surreal, especially, he's come to visit the site once already. So it's pretty awesome when you get that kind of attention on your construction project. So our purpose that we really have is to be a good contractor and to show that just because we're a minority contractor doesn't mean we can't be recognized as our fellow competitors as just a good contractor. So we really strive to be the best contractor and to show that we can do everything our majority competitors can do.
Our thanks again to all the contributors who joined us for this episode of the Business Equity and Opportunities podcast. We hope you found it enlightening, useful, and inspiring. You'll find more information about the show on our website, BEOshow.com. You can watch Business Equity and Opportunities Sunday mornings at 10 on Wish TV or live stream it through wishtv.com. Each week we provide 7 full segments with topics ranging from how to get started and how to access capital to the day-to-day running of your business and questions about accounting and bookkeeping. We feature business news and trends and always share a success story from one of our contributors. Join us next time for more insights into the world of small business. Be sure to sign up for our Business Equity and Opportunities newsletter to get even more valuable, up-to-date information. And if you have any questions or you'd like to be part of our show, please email us. The address is beo@wishtv.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Scott Sander. Thanks for listening.
Watch the Business Equity and Opportunity Show on Wish TV and access all of our content and share it on demand anytime at BEOshow.com. You can find more podcasts from Wish TV on the All Indiana Podcast Network at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.